So Shiv, the other day I was like on Twitter and then or X, and I saw like this tweet by George Mack about like the 18 raises. So I think today we'll just go over like a few of them. So the first one is the bragging razor. Have you ever heard about this one?
No.
So the bragging razor goes that if someone brags about their success or happiness, then assume it's half what they claim. If someone downplays their success or happiness, then assume it's double what they claim.
Interesting. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. That's an interesting perspective. Why do you think that is in people? Is it because they over exaggerate what they've been able to do?
Like why do I think like people behave
That
when
way,
they exaggerate
yeah.
things? Well, think about like ourselves, right? Have there been times where you've exaggerated?
For sure.
So why did you do that in that case? Or what
Drama.
what behavior? Yeah, drama.
Drama. No, I think it's true. Yeah, you try to increase the success metrics of that a bit. You try to paint it in a way that shows that you were better. So it's an ego thing. It's a bit of an arrogant thing as well to stick it in that like, oh yeah, you know, I'm gonna exaggerate it because you worked out this way when in reality it wasn't as great as how you perceive it. And I think there's an ignorance part of it as well. Like maybe you don't see it. The perspective you have on it is more blown in your mind than it actually is, you know. But also like at that point in time, that could have been successful for you. So you can't really measure success for someone. Like what success to you is to me could be different. But there is an objective like an objective view on what success is and what dictates success. But yeah.
I think like the best way I think of where we have applied it, all of us, is like in job interviews.
Okay, yeah.
Because we're trying to basically sell ourselves, trying to make ourselves look good and just be able to perform better against like the competition.
Please hire me, please.
Yeah. Especially if it's your first job, you're going to be a bit more desperate.
Yeah.
But I think like in the setting of social media, right, we see this a lot where we see like people on, you know, not to hate or anything, but it's like they're on Lamborghini cars and like driving in private jets and things like that. And everyone sort of has this impression that they must own all of that. And even like when you go to parties and you hear someone talking a lot about themselves, like the way I sort of take it is like the map is not the territory. We went over this before, where it's like what you may see on social media, or what you may even hear of like from people, it may not be the reality of it. Obviously, it might be exaggerated. We all have a tendency to exaggerate ourselves to a certain extent. And I think that's why it's very careful. Like you want to be very careful of not completely blindly following and trusting that until you really see proof and evidence of that being real. And I think in a social setting, especially, like you could create something called like the halo effect. Have you heard about halo effect before?
I think I have. Is it when like good looking people get perceived better or something along those lines, or the positive, something to do with like being positive or good? People perceive you as positive and good.
Yeah,
pretty
much.
You might not actually be that. You might actually be a complete piece of something.
Yeah, basically like people have this overall very positive impression of you based on a single characteristic.
Right.
So
okay, yeah.
you can see this happen a lot where some guy who's a good looking person, who's very fit, wears a suit. Now you just think like everything this guy says, I'll buy. Basically, you'd be like, oh wow, he's disciplined, he's able to be fit, he's able to do this. I trust every word he says. And he sells you into his like I don't know, like one of his courses or something like that.
Selling solar panels or
yeah,
or he's probably trying to
when he's really
scam you or something.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like I think like what I get from this one is like just don't rush and FOMO into things and be aware of the halo effect, where you're just basing everything that this person is of a single characteristic, mainly being probably physical. And I think Viktor Frankl said this really well, where it's like the space between stimulus and response, if you have sorry, let me reword that again. Between stimulus and response, that there is space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom.
Yikes.
Yeah, very, very, very powerful
That's
quote,
really
actually.
deep.
It's very powerful though, because like we're very quick to respond to change. Like we're very quick to respond, right? But that space in between, before you respond, if you're able to control that and do it in a state where you're like composed and you're rationally thinking and things like that, that is where like most power lies. Because that stops you from like, fear of missing out, of rushing into decisions and like trusting things like very quickly. So yeah, that's what he emphasizes on.
Interesting, yeah.
So I think like with that, like it's just being in a more of like a, I'd say, like being in a state of, they call it an empirical skeptic. Empirical skeptic.
Empirical skeptic. What does that mean?
Basically someone who always looks at things with a, basically adopting a state of cautiousness and questioning things towards like the beliefs, or like and you basically you'd be basically questioning things in short words. That's all you're doing. The attitudes and like the beliefs that they have and what they say. That's what being a skeptic is, yeah. And I guess like it's very useful, right, in the case of negotiation. Because a lot of the time when it comes to negotiations, it's very easy to have like halo effect. And especially when they're trying to sell you things, like they're like, oh, like, you're getting all these benefits, you're getting this, that, like, and then they sort of force you in a way to basically agree very quickly and decide in that moment, or like, oh, like, I've got like 10 people who want this type of offer. Like they're on the call at any moment of time, this offer will be gone, right? So
Yep.
then it's like you just buy into the emotion of missing out. So then I guess like in this sense, being like a skeptic, where you're like thinking, okay, it sounds too good to be true. What are some things that I am also providing or giving value off, or compromising here for this person to be able to give me this type of offer? So it's like giving yourself that space before you react, and thinking about it is like very important. Because yeah, with these types of offers and jobs, like it's even beyond just conversations. You see it online on sales pages. Like there's products you try and buy, those websites where they have funnels, right? Where there's like, it's like the timer, like 10 hours left until like the sale's gone or something. So it's like, yeah, giving yourself that, when you see, and then they list out 100 dot points of why it's good with like 10,000 testimonials, which could be bought or something. So it's like, instead of, and that's like the bragging razor. They're bragging so many good things about it. Okay, what are the flaws and weaknesses? Because nothing is perfect. What am I compromising? So just putting yourself in that skeptic frame.
And this goes back to the fact that, yeah, when people try to sell you something, it's always about the positives, and it kind of makes sense. You want to sell the positive aspects of something rather than sell the negativity of it. But yeah, you're right. People, I think, do lack at times, and I'm guilty of it myself, is to understand what are the negative implications of this, or what's negative about this. And then it goes back to that, like, why am I being sold this? That you don't get questioned, like you don't get questioned a lot. It's just like, why? You're trying to sell me this. Why are you trying to sell me this? Like, yeah, okay, well, how does this benefit me, etc. So there's a lot of factors to that. With like social media has allowed for that idea of showing the success, but not showing the journey of that success. And we've spoken about this previously, but it's like the bragging razor here. If someone brags about the success or happiness and assume it's half what they claim, like you kind of see it in social, like relationships in people and what they want to post on social media and show the world what a beautiful couple they are or whatever it is. But you never see behind the scenes, and like every relationship has its struggles and problems, but how many of those relationships do you actually see that are genuinely good? Maybe they are, maybe they're not. Who knows, right? But no one questions it when they see it on Instagram or social media. It's like that is the pinnacle of success at that point in time and what they see. But they don't really question, like, if theoretically every relationship has problems, their relationship would probably have problems too. What are those problems? You don't see it, and you're never going to see it. But people are quick to compare that to success, the better parts.
That's a very good example of like social comparison, especially.
And I
with,
think
like,
it's not, posting once in a while is different to hounding and posting every single moment. Showing success. You can show success with your partner once in a while. I'm not a anti person that you shouldn't show success. You should. It's important. And you should share that success. But I'm talking about the people that just exaggerate it too much, and you can just see something is off. You can sense that something is off because, there's insecurities, there's ego, there's a lot of things that play there. If you're secure in yourself, you don't have a need to show that security. But when you're insecure, you have the sense to show security, too much of that security. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like, I completely agree with
Yeah.
what you're saying because, I think that's what a lot of the bragging really is. It's just like a form of validation or something you're trying to mask with this, like, that's what I think it is. Like, you're masking something else behind it. I think a lot of the time. That's why I'm very skeptic about things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I don't really compare myself to people very quickly. I'm just like, especially on social media, I'm just like, these are just like the perfect, like, good for them, honestly, great for them. If that's what they're living, great, awesome. But it's just like, there's no point of me comparing my current state where I'm probably not at perfection with someone else where they had a snapshot of a second of a perfect moment. Because they might have gone through a lot more struggle, a lot more difficult, a lot of hours of days, of weeks of struggle,
100%.
which no one talks about, which no one sees. Even like those perfect moments of like them in a relationship, they might have gone through a lot of arguments to even get to that point. So it's just
100%.
like, you know what, good for them. And like, why should I compare where I am, to their perfect state for like a second for a little quick second?
Yeah.
It takes seconds to create a photo.
And I think it's understanding that there is struggle there, which people don't see. And they compare that, when they're in struggle and they see other people are in struggle, it's like, no, that person has struggled. You just haven't seen it, Same way they won't see your struggle. The day you succeed or you do better or whatever you want, no one's going to see that. And then you'll see it, right? So, yeah, interesting one.
That's the idea of contrast, right? Where it's like, I think it's called contrast, where it's like we're comparing our, we could say like our lives are probably like, 6 out of 10 or something. And we're comparing against like 8 or 9 out of 10 lives where people on social media have like, jets, cars and all this stuff, living fancy lives. We're comparing our life to like an 8 or 9 out of 10. That's why we feel miserable. But then when you go to a third world country or when you go to even to like the hospital, those people are living like 1 or 2 or 3 out of 10 lives, right? They're on like deathbed. They would do anything to trade their life for your life.
Yep.
And when you go there, it's like your understanding of your life feels inflated. It's like, oh, I'm actually living an 8 or 9 out of 10 life because I'm able to walk around, not in a hospital bed. And when you go third world countries, you also start to realize like, oh, wow, I'm in a state of privilege to be able to travel to this place, be able to eat and do all these types of things. So I think that's why it's good to really go out there in the real world rather than just being stuck in this digital world of like everything being perfect. It really makes you start to appreciate where you are currently and things like that. So
you value the experiences and, you're right. I think immigrants, like, you wouldn't understand how much struggle there's been until you've actually seen the struggle yourself. I think we live privileged lives. I would 100% say that without a doubt. But being given the opportunity to walk around, do whatever we want, go to a grocery store, buy whatever we want, walk down the road, get whatever fast food we want, drive anywhere we want, have access to internet, be able to speak here. It's all a privilege, So, but going back to that bragging, yeah, like there's a lot of insecurities there, and I do want to talk about the person that doesn't talk too much about their achievements either, because that's an interesting one. Like, they're interesting characters because, they credit everyone else around them but themselves more, and they credit other people more. but it shows appreciation for that person as well. Like being in an environment where you've been supported and guided by a mentor or a leader to deliver great outcomes, you want to credit that person, and you should credit that person just as much. But sometimes, yes, we do downplay our achievements a bit more than we should, but it's always hard to find a balance, I think, because if you downplay it too much, you don't get that recognition that you deserve, that you should get for the great work you've done. You brag too much, you get too much recognition for something that wasn't actually as great, objectively speaking, right? So that balance is quite intriguing to strike. That balance is, how do you actually find that perfect balance? Because I do think personally that you shouldn't downplay achievements too much. You should be proud of them. But I think it goes back to this point, should you be talking out loud about it a lot and making that your personality? Probably not.
Yeah, I think like that's actually a very good point of like finding a balance between them. And I think it's actually, there's moments where you have to sort of, pitch yourself as someone who's capable of doing things. Like someone, I mean, no, I wouldn't really say it's bragging. It's like more of like persuading that you're valuable. And I think instead of saying it with words, like you prove it through action. I think that's much more valued as opposed to like talking about it. It's like in that sense, it's not really bragging. You're persuading people through action, which is like proof, because we judge things by action more. Like we'll value action more than words, right? So I think like in the hierarchy of like value, like I would say evidence, like actions would be the highest, and that's consistent. So like that's how I would go around that. And then when it comes to like your achievements, yeah, I think it's very important to recognize your strengths and what you're really good at, and also like celebrate those small wins, especially along the journey that you're going along. Because I don't think anyone is going to be able to celebrate as much as you do. You are your biggest, like, I would say, ally. You are your biggest, I would say, like, because at the end of the day, wherever you get to, it takes belief. It's such a like overrated thing, and like people say it's, but I think it's really is belief. If you don't have belief in yourself, you can't execute or achieve anything. And that belief is like even during like the toughest of times where they're gonna have people against you. Not everyone's gonna be holding your hand. It's gonna be you that has to be able to have that courage and stick to it. And I think it's important you celebrate those wins along the way and realize your achievements.
I agree 100%. And I think you're your own enemy, you're your own friend. You're, as much as your friends or your enemies will try to put you down or pull you up, you can't be done without you doing it yourself. And until you don't really, like, you can only save yourself. Like, it's a bit of a harsh truth, but I've seen it. It's like the harshest truth in life for anyone is knowing that no one will come to save you. You have to save yourself. And it's so true. It's so true. Like, you can have people begging for you to make change and do things, but it won't happen until you put it to yourself. It's a good example. Like, I'm an example of it myself, Like, there are things in my life that I had to change to do better. And I know there's things that I have to change to be better. That's how it is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, for example, say like I was drowning, right? And then you throw out like a floaty or something. It's up to me. You did your part, but now it's up to me to get that floaty, like to be able to grab that. And that's the decision I have to make. Either I stay here and drown, like crying, complaining, and all that stuff, panicking, or either I go out there and actually just reach out for it and just survive. So I still had to take that action to be able to survive as well. So definitely, you are your own savior in those difficult times for sure. But yeah, I think like also at the same time with people that downplay it, there's two sides to it. I mean, the way I see it though is like people that have gone through a significant amount of struggle and have some sense of humility don't really feel the need to be able to talk about themselves. They just prove it through action. You just see it in their character, the way that they talk, like the way that they navigate around things, the way that even through their words, where they empower people around them, the way that the organized discipline, like you see it on so many. It's not just like in one aspect of their life, but many other aspects of their life. And I feel like they've just gone through like some sort of struggle or humbling moment, which have really made them make them realize that you can almost lose anything at any moment of time. So there's not much point of me like talking about it. Rather, it's like the character that I've become that I really, that I value more of, and that they display pretty much more of.
The success is based on the character, not the character that they've become and what they've learned along the way and the growth, rather than what they built. Because what you build can be taken away from you at any point, but what you learn can never be taken away from you.
And I feel like if you brag too much about it, you become very attached to it.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, exactly. And attachment's a big one. Like you get attached to the outcome, and it's me, mine. Like you become that bird from Nemo, seagulls. mine. Like, that's how people walk around at times. Like mine. Like, yeah, but you know, I mean, how many things have transferred over time to different people? You know, like some of the great people that have built things. You know, like we talk about them, but we talk about the character and what led them to build that and what they built. But as I said, like evolution, the evolution of ideas, things will change. Something better will always come. You will always be replaced. You know,
that's the thing. It's like that's why I don't. That's also another thing as well with like being number one and the greatest, which I think a lot of people like to brag about. But it's just like number one is going to be gone the next day. Like someone else can be born. Like who holds the title of number one? It's always changing. It's never really like you're forever this person who's number one. Maybe of the day, it's going to be someone else the day after. It's just like instead of it pointing towards like becoming number one of the world, just becoming the greatest version of yourself. And the byproduct of that will be you potentially might become become well known in the world or something. But yeah, I think that's some traps people really fall into, like chasing titles and bragging about that and attaching themselves to the moment that they lose it. Now they're worthless.
Yep.
And yeah,
it's an interesting one, isn't it?
Yeah, it
You
is.
see it so much. I'm this, I'm that. It's not. I've learnt this. I've learnt that. This is who I've become as a result. So interesting.